Welcome to our video on the existential risk of a grey goo scenario. Today, we're going to be discussing the possibility of a world where self-replicating nanobots consume all matter on Earth, and the potential consequences for life on our planet. First, let's define what we mean by grey goo. Grey goo is a hypothetical scenario in which self-replicating nanobots, also known as grey goo, are released into the environment and begin to consume all matter in their path. These nanobots are incredibly small, measuring only a few nanometers in size, and they have the ability to replicate themselves rapidly and efficiently. Now, you may be thinking, but isn't this just science fiction? Why should we be worried about grey goo? Well, the truth is that the technology for self-replicating nanobots already exists, and it's only a matter of time before it becomes more advanced. With the rapid development of nanotechnology, it's possible that scientists and engineers may accidentally release grey goo into the environment. So, what would happen if grey goo were to be released into the environment? Well, the consequences would be catastrophic. The grey goo would consume all matter in its path, including soil, water, and even the atmosphere. This would lead to the extinction of all plant and animal life, including humans. But it's not just the immediate impact that we need to worry about. A grey goo scenario could also lead to long-term consequences, such as the collapse of the global economy and the loss of biodiversity. It could also lead to a mass extinction event, wiping out all life on Earth. Now that we know the potential consequences of a grey goo scenario, what can we do to prevent it? One solution is to regulate the development and use of nanotechnology. This could include requiring safety protocols and regulations for the development and use of nanotechnology, as well as monitoring and tracking the release of nanobots into the environment. Another solution is to develop technology that could be used to detect and neutralize grey goo if it were released into the environment. This could include using specialized nanobots that are programmed to seek out and neutralize grey goo, or using powerful electromagnetic fields to disrupt the replication of grey goo. It's also important to note that even if we are able to prevent the release of grey goo, it's still possible that it could be used as a weapon. Therefore, it's also important to have emergency plans in place in the event of a grey goo attack. This could include evacuation plans, emergency shelters, and emergency supplies. So, now that we know the potential consequences of a grey goo scenario, what can we do as individuals to reduce the risk? One of the most important things we can do is to stay informed about the latest developments in nanotechnology and the potential risks associated with it. We can also support the regulation of nanotechnology and the development of technology to detect and neutralize grey goo. The existential risk of a grey goo scenario is a serious concern that requires our attention. By regulating the development and use of nanotechnology, developing technology to detect and neutralize grey goo, and having emergency plans in place, we can reduce the risk of a grey goo scenario and protect life on Earth. We can also stay informed about the latest developments in nanotechnology and the potential risks associated with it, and support the regulation of nanotechnology and the development of technology to detect and neutralize grey goo. It's important to remember that the risk of a grey goo scenario may be low, but the potential consequences are too severe to ignore. One of the main concerns about grey goo is that it could replicate itself so quickly that it would be impossible to stop. Because of this, scientists and engineers have proposed several methods for controlling grey goo, including the use of kill switches and brakes that would prevent the nanobots from replicating out of control. Another method that is being studied is the use of smart dust, or smart particles. These are tiny sensors that can detect and report on the presence of grey goo, allowing scientists and engineers to track its spread and take action to neutralize it. Another method that is being studied is the use of smart materials, or smart surfaces. These are materials or surfaces that are designed to inhibit the replication of grey goo, making it difficult for the nanobots to consume them. Another method that is being studied is the use of smart barriers. These are barriers that are designed to physically block the movement of grey goo, preventing it from spreading. One important aspect that needs to be addressed is the ethics of grey goo. It's important to consider the ethical implications of creating self-replicating nanobots, and to ensure that the technology is developed and used responsibly. This includes considering the potential risks to human safety, the environment, and other life forms. It's also important to consider the potential for grey goo to be used as a weapon. The ability to create and release a self-replicating substance that can consume everything in its path has the potential to cause catastrophic damage. This highlights the need for international regulations and laws to govern the development and use of nanotechnology. In addition, it's important to take into account the socio-economic impact of grey goo. The extinction of all life on Earth would have severe consequences for our planet and its inhabitants, including the collapse of the global economy, loss of biodiversity, and the destruction of human civilization. One solution to mitigate the risks of grey goo is to invest in research and development of safety protocols, regulations and monitoring for the development and use of nanotechnology. This will help to prevent the accidental release of grey goo, and ensure that scientists and engineers are aware of the risks associated with the technology. Another solution is to invest in research and development of technology that can detect and neutralize grey goo. This could include the development of specialized nanobots, powerful electromagnetic fields, or other methods that can be used to disrupt the replication of grey goo. As individuals, we can also do our part by staying informed about the latest developments in nanotechnology and the potential risks associated with it. We can also support the regulation of nanotechnology and the development of technology to detect and neutralize grey goo. In conclusion, the existential risk of grey goo is a serious concern that requires our attention. By regulating the development and use of nanotechnology, developing technology to detect and neutralize grey goo, and having emergency plans in place, we can reduce the risk of grey goo scenario and protect life on Earth. It's also important to consider the ethical implications of creating self-replicating nanobots and to ensure that the technology is developed and used responsibly. We must be aware of the potential for grey goo to be used as a weapon and the socio-economic impact of grey goo. With the right approach, we can ensure a safe and sustainable future for our planet and its inhabitants. Thanks for watching.